This hour of broadcasting brought to you by TwoWayRadioCenter.com, a Motorola value-added reseller. Welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys. Brought to you by Vigilant Impact. The Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization dedicated to equipping the vigilant, those men and women who stand watch, keeping our houses of worship and places of faith safe. We believe church safety and security must be a ministry first and have engaged, servant leaders who continually strive for excellence and teams of motivated volunteers that are always training. Join us for the next hour as the Church Safety Guys unpack safety, security, leadership, and ministry operations with your hosts, Dr. James McGarvey and Mike Scully. This broadcast is also available on YouTube, your favorite podcast platforms, churchsafetyguys.com, and on the original Church Security app. Download it today. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share with your ministry.
On this broadcast, we wanted to talk a little bit about personalities and teams and just really kind of diving in a little bit to how your personality kind of impacts your safety ministry and your team, and how you can kind of navigate that a little bit. And I think this episode, I keep saying episode, it could end up being 2 episodes. We might break it in half just to make it a little bit easier. So if we do, the next episode will be a follow-up with this. But in the past, we've had Jason Heavner with us, and Jason is with Wisdom and Knowledge, and has a great website, has done a lot of research from a biblical perspective on personalities, and is very well versed in it. And he has been on the broadcast a couple of times before, and usually those broadcasts we get a lot of really positive feedback, and everybody likes it when he shows up. So I will pull him in, and we will get rolling right away. So welcome, Jason.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Always good to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And I wasn't fibbing or anything. When you're on our broadcast and we do a broadcast, we see a lot higher numbers. So
cool.
That tells me from the topic standpoint,
yeah,
that tells me that people are really interested in. And we push church safety and security from a ministry standpoint, and understanding that it really goes beyond just active shooter training, just first aid training. And so we want to encourage church safety and security teams to be into discipleship, mentorship, understanding, and really connecting with people as they serve. So for me, understanding, I mean, this is something that I could jump into and brainstorm with you probably all day about it. Just because I think there's such a need right now, even from the churches that reach out to us, there's such a need for an understanding of how something practical, like we call it MBTI, but a personality instrument or personality test, how we can leverage that to do ministry better. And so because we've had so many folks reach out to us about it, it fits as a good topic for us to talk about.
I think the statistic recently is 88%. I think that's right. Of Fortune 500 companies are using it in their team building, and so it would make sense that churches are also trying to figure out, is this okay to use? How do we use this? Because it seems to be pretty effective, and that's one of the things that is notable.
Yeah, well, and I know there's always, like, we've had people even reach out to us and say, well, that's not really biblical. Is it biblical? and kind of throw that question mark up of, should I use this, because I'm not really sure if this is something that's applicable, because the Bible doesn't say a whole lot specifically about MBTI or personality.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's go ahead for a little bit more context. Let's pull in the chart that you had.
Yep.
And because I kind of like you to go back through and just explain for those listening and maybe on the podcast later, but just for those listening, kind of explain your take on the wisdom and knowledge and value piece of it.
Okay, just stop me if I get into it too much.
Too deep. Okay.
I have lots of fun with it. So here, this will be. I think this is my personality here, and James. So far, we're kind of thinking ENFJ, right? And let's see, Jared. We're going to go EN. I don't think ENTJ, but maybe we'll see. Okay, so we'll talk about these three though for now.
Okay.
These top letters are just a formula. If you look at those letters and think that they are something, that is closer to the whole horoscope sort of idea. Because it's just a bunch of letters and it means nothing. It's a formula and it points to these functions. And this is true for MBTI. This is consistent with MBTI's thinking as well, that this is a formula and it points to these functions. Now, these four functions. So when I say these four functions, for people to not be able to see, there's four functions, and two of them are going to be regarding wisdom. So we're going to do the ENFJ for James. That would be,
you can use me
values.
As a guinea pig.
Yeah, we'll use you as a guinea pig. So his wisdom would be in his flow state when things are going swimmingly for him. He's going to have objective values being worked on, and decisions are going to be made to objective values. Then over here, the last function is going to be internal logic. So that's the two wisdom functions on the outer ends, and on the inner two are going to be imagination or intuition, and that's going to be an internal process. So like how he sees his company, church safety guys going forward. A lot of these things he's going to see down the road further than a lot of people who don't have this NI function. And actually, Mike Scully, let's see, he's over here at INTJ. He can also do that pretty well. So they're a good team as far as looking down the road.
That's good to know.
Then they're good. And then you have the SE here. This function here, this is part of knowledge. These two functions are part of knowledge. And the SE is objective sensing. So if you're going to make a big plan about going to the future, you have to objectively know your sensory information. Here's our budget. Here's where we live. Here's the churches that are interested in speaking with us. So
sure.
That's the knowledge function. But what drives the judgment or the decision-making process is highly extroverted values, and then the TI logic. And so you can unpack this for everybody along the way. So I don't know if you want to do more of that chart. This is just a chart that C.S. Joseph, he's an interesting fellow online. I like his structure, but I don't like his application. His application, he does not align with, he rejects the Bible. And so his application, I think, really falls apart. But the structure, the way he lays this out, helps you identify people. So for instance, a direct person will be in this top row or this row here. And so you can help identify like a member of your team or somebody. If they're a direct speaker and they tend to be direct, they're going to be one of these four or one of these four. And that helps you kind of grid off a personality type. That's why I like his chart there.
So it's more of like a general sample of knowing, okay, if this person is abrupt or something like that, then they're probably going to be in one of those.
Right. So like if we were to talk about yours again, so if you're direct, meaning you don't speak and then hope people get the implication, you kind of speak it directly and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm seeing. So you're more of a direct speaker. And then the abstract versus the concrete, I think people who know you well might think of you more as abstract from the point of view of holding ideas in your mind more than like really concrete people tend to be really good with the hammer and nail, the tools, fixing the car, fixing the this and that. Abstract tend to be more able to hold concepts in their minds and see a vision of like process. So that would be, if we saw that you were direct and abstract, we would only have these two choices.
Sure.
These four choices. And then you could do more questions to try to figure out, are you affiliative, which is basically relating to people, or pragmatic, more related to the process.
So from that standpoint, would you say that people that are more imaginative with that would be better problem solvers because they can think outside the box?
Yeah, usually better problem solvers when it comes to you have to be very careful how I say it, because it's in what field. So better problem solver, when you're fixing a car, if you have an ISTP in your corner, he's going to solve your problem in the real world. If you're going to have a relational or a team issue, you're going to be able to solve a problem. You know, different people are going to be able to solve a problem solving in different ways. And so N really focuses on what hasn't happened yet and trying to make that happen, bring it into, so like the Wright brothers, right? Nobody had ever flown before in the real world. Like that was unrealistic. It's unpractical. But I can guarantee you one of them were N dominant, where they had an imagination, say, hey, let's fly. Like, what are you talking about? So they have to have a vision like, well, the birds can fly, and they can kind of see the vision, and then the S will make it effectively. When the N has won the S over, the S will make it happen. That's just a on paper sort of situation, but you can be trained in different ways. It's a natural thing.
So, I mean, from a concrete versus imaginative standpoint, you know, you could, like, I could say that, you know, my dad is very mechanically inclined, far more than I am, but at the same time, he's taught me over the years different things of how to do things, like with the car, and just as an example and that sort of thing. So how do you feel about, or how do you think that it applies with learning, even from a group or from a team standpoint? Like, would it be possible to really train someone in another area, or through experience in different things, or would it just be better for me to adjust what they're doing to their does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, from our first talk 2 years ago till now, I have changed how I think about this to some degree. 2 years ago, I would have said it's really best to change their role to what they're designed to do. But now it's never an ideal situation. I've never seen a situation where you have everybody equally experienced, equally trained, equally, like, there's always all these variables. And so what I say now is understand the person. So pick who you think is the most qualified, and then understand how they need to learn, how they need to apply their skills. But there are going to be a lot of let me see. I'll give you a small example. So I'm an ENFP down here. So I'm NEFITESI. I had a parent, my mom who was an ENFJ, and a father who was an ESFP. So if you can see here, look at this SE function. This means that they are often very capable of seeing the objective world the way things are. Here's SE here, and here's SE here.
Sure.
So they, by their own design, assume, and in their own marriage and own family, is like SE is just a normal thing to have, right? Here I am here with SI low. So as we look at low, we're saying less and less energy is spent on this thing. Less and less energy as we go down. Well, SE is as far away as you can get for myself, because this is the that goes into more. So I don't have SE. We'll say it that way. I don't have SE in the top function, and yet I was trained by my parents to use it, and I don't essentially have it. So I became an electrician, and I did a lot of things in the trades that blood, sweat, and tears, pain, suffering. I spent 20 years in the trades, and I finally said, you know what? I'm not an electrician. That's just, I had my own company. I worked for myself for 5 years, and I just was never like the other guys, quote unquote, who were successful. And really what it turns out is they were in this S column over here. Both of these, they're much more S dominant. There is a place for me in the electrical field. It's just that it's not, it has to be a very large company, and I would probably be more into the advertising and sales than actual wiring.
Okay. That makes sense.
But it's really the getting it done, pulling the wires. They would get this work done. I keep pointing to the ISTP because they have high logic, internal logic, and very objective sensing, so they can bust out a job pretty quick. Whereas here's my problem or my issue is I want to spend all my time imagining possibilities. So so my situation is I'd go to a customer's home, I'd want to have the ideal situation for them, and I would they say I just want an outlet. Well, I would want to know why they want to have the outlet, and what's in the future going to be needed. I would always overthink the job rather than just, hey, put the outlet in. It's fine. And I would put in more wiring than necessary. I would always overcompensate.
Sure.
But now in relationships, when I'm working with people as a coach, boy, that's perfect because you're always kind of helping them see where they're going to end up and kind of help them. I can always use that function now very naturally.
It's interesting you say that, and I'll pull us back up on the thing here. It's interesting you say that though, because our parents, like our moms and dads, get along very well. I've never gone and asked my parents what their traits might be or where they fit in. But what's interesting to me is that I think that within a few letters, I think they're probably pretty close to being the same. And what's interesting to me is that, I could totally relate and understand with really what you were just saying from the aspect of, oftentimes like my mom is more imaginative, like in her personality, and my dad is very much like, he's a machinist engineer. So, he loves doing that. So for his occupation for 40 plus years, he's always been focused on solid constants, concrete, this is how it has to work. This is how it has to happen. So from that aspect, that makes a lot of sense to me. But if you haven't, and I'll say this for the listeners, if you haven't had the opportunity to actually take one of the, we call it tests, but we've kind of said instrument too in discussion, and just understanding it's not necessarily something that's set in stone 100%.
Yeah, it's like if you're let's say you're baking a cake or you're electrician, you're going to have these tools that you have, the instruments, and it's like taking a temperature in time, right? So if you're saying, hey, I want to go on Tinder and find a date, and so what's my personality, right? You're going to be like, oh, I'm outgoing, I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, are you really this? Like, how introspective are you when you take this instrument? How circumspect are you in thinking? Not just have I done this before, but do I consistently do it over time, day in and day out? Is this the pattern? And usually people don't have the time or kind of objectivity to answer that question without. It's usually so we don't put a lot of weight in it the first time somebody says it. We want to really see it lived out, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're really trying to capture who that person is as opposed to who that person thinks they want to be.
Yeah. especially because people will try, they'll see some of the deficiencies and, oh, I've been trying to do that, so I've been doing that more, or this, maybe I'm Jay because now I have a schedule, well, do you enjoy the schedule? Is it natural for you? Or is the problem really, it's the problem of really being too much tied to a schedule and not being able to be flexible? That shows the Jay, not the fact that you've aspired to be Jay person.
Well, and that's why, like, in fact, I got a survey today at work that they wanted my employer wanted to know, I don't know, how I felt about something. And I know most people, I think this is the second or third email that I've gotten. So I know most people probably just click the delete button and don't, because I mean, honestly, I work with a lot of people that are concrete and not feeling people. Like they work not by abstracts, they work by what is set, because again, I mean, that's just their personalities. Like we deal with tolerances with engineering and all sorts of different things that's, it's required. And if we don't think in those circles, then it can be a life and death, situation.
You learn to really be thankful for all the personalities. So much of the fruit of this is one of the things, bringing it back to the Bible, is once you understand these are their designs, and you can actually be interdependent, right? Doesn't the Bible talk about that one member's the eye and the other's the foot and the hand, and because I'm not structured this way, I have no use for the body, you begin to say, wow, I'm so thankful that somebody's willing to make widgets every single day and they get fulfillment of that. And to not denigrate that. Like, we're actually thankful that people can do that, because it would be really hard for me. But some people say, look, last week I did 700, this week I did 800. Take that, right, machines, and then they'll go back and try to do it again. And there's so rather than thinking, oh, that's just, I can't imagine living that way or thinking that way, changing to being thankful that they're, find the fulfillment in that job. Yeah.
Well, and that kind of goes, we were going to talk about a little bit about the idea of bringing this into just church as a whole. And that makes perfect sense. It's understanding and looking at different ministries and saying, what is someone suited for with this ministry? And I honestly, I mean, Jared, you can probably chime in here too, but safety and security has a lot of different functions and roles and aspects. And a lot of times we can see someone that maybe isn't finding another ministry that they want to serve in, and tap into some of their characteristics and bring them into safety and security to do simple things. I mean, I've done that before. Someone that, couldn't find another ministry to serve in, really wanted to serve, but physically couldn't, mentally couldn't. But at the same time, they flourished because I brought them in and had them watch the cameras. And they did an amazing job, and that's their thing. And it brought them, very much brought them self-fulfillment, because they were like, hey, I can serve now.
I have a part. Yeah.
And I know, I know what's going on, and I can be helpful. And I think tying it back into biblical principles, if we know that, I think that's where discipleship comes in too, because then we can better connect with that person, regardless of their characteristics.
Yeah, I think you hit on it there, and it applies whether you're leading a safety and security team or serving on a safety and security team, or even in parenting, that every relationship should be an opportunity for discipleship. Sometimes it's one direction. You're the very, very much the discipler. Sometimes you're being discipled, and then, oftentimes it's a two-way flow. And so, being able to disciple others and lead others well, requires that ability to that grace-filled approach to how can I get you closer in your relationship to God? How can I help you in you living out biblical principles in your life? And it doesn't all look the same. Thank goodness.
Right. One way, a nice illustration. This is N, right, or imagination. A way to illustrations are often imagination, needing the use of imagination. But Jesus talked in parables and stuff like that, and so that's where we're using our imagination. I like to think about personalities as different operating systems. So like you've got Apple computer and you've got Windows, right? They're computers, they don't talk together, but don't they perform like nearly all the same functions? If you want to look at pictures on an Apple or window, it'll work just fine. But you just have to speak the right language, otherwise you get an error. And so certain personalities, you got to speak their language, otherwise you get an error. They can do the thing, but you've got to do it on their code essentially, or they have to modify to your code. It's like somebody's got to modify. It's either to you or to them, or perhaps you run the same code, and that makes a pretty neat relationship because you bump into those like, hey, you run Windows too.
That's awesome. But
yeah,
it's pretty accurate, I think, honestly. I mean, we're all gifted in different things. And, we just went through a week of Vacation Bible School, and I don't want to say too much because sometimes my folks listen to this podcast, so I don't want them coming. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't say anything, but working with individuals. I mean, Vacation Bible School, we do ours 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. every night for 4 nights, and oftentimes our folks show up at 5. Like as a director, I would show up at 5 and then often stay till 11, or midnight. And at that point, by the end of the week, because you've been working with certain people so well, or for so long and extended hours, it gets frustrating. And you start realizing, what, maybe this person isn't suited for this role. I should probably change them or move them to a different function or that sort of thing. But it's interesting. It's always interesting to me how, you learn so much working with someone. And there have been a few times, like I said, coming out of Vacation Bible School, where in a larger environment, working with other individuals, where I've had to come back and say, okay, I need to look at something else. Why is this person doing what they're doing? Maybe it's personality based, but I need to, as a leader, I need to shift gears, and I need to be able to adapt and adjust, because if I don't, I might end up killing this person before the week's out.
Yeah.
But Jason,
it's helpful.
Go ahead. How much as you're working to navigate and kind of be all things to all men in a sense of understanding others' personalities and wanting to be able to relate to them well, how long can you kind of live in another category effectively before you kind of start or stop being true to who God made you? I mean, where's the balance on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, like if we look at if I look at in the Bible, I don't see a situation where. So how do we say it this way? We're in a culture now where church, you can just move from church to church to church, or from business to business to business. Mm-hmm. But for most of the, wouldn't we say for most of the world's time, we've been pretty set up to be in our little town or a little village and maybe a city, but you're not really traveling a lot, and so you're really having to figure out how to get along with these people. Like we don't usually have to have cars and planes and all that stuff and just constantly be on the move. We don't really have to be in an adaptive state towards people. We can kind of like say, well, I'll just move on to the next person that I do get along.
Yeah.
But so I think if we if we're following God, we should be able to do it just the way, as long as is needed. There's some marriages that from even non-believers that will last an entire lifetime, and it's like, how do they do this? Where we have believing. This is more my field is more in marriage and stuff. How do we have Christian marriages that fall apart so readily? And really, it's just that if we follow God's ways, we'll be able to deal with all men in a godly way. For instance, if we're loving that person, if we're truly loving that person, we can stay in a different state for a long time. But I think we've flown. I think as I'm talking this out, I'm thinking about your question too. I think we just solved the problem. We can do it for a little while, but eventually we try to solve the problem in our own design. So, like in my case, my imagination, right? So if I'm being called to be outside of my personality, where I need to make, let's say I need to make widgets. The church says, "Hey, we need you to make widgets." So I do that for a little while, but eventually my imagination will start thinking, like, let me see if I can prove myself as more worthy to do this task or that task. And there'll be in time, there's going to be this pull back. Otherwise, we become very, we have a sin nature, and the sin nature we're not redeemed yet. So our sin nature will push us back eventually.
I wonder with that, if that could cause somebody to like, and I'm just thinking out loud here with the conversation, but I wonder if that could cause somebody to actually get burnout, like a burnout syndrome from serving, because in a sense, if I'm serving and say I went to Jared's church and Jared was in charge and I'm serving him and I'm trying to do the best I can, but I'm also trying to make him happy, and I'm not seeing that my actions are making him happy. So I'm trying to change my actions to make him happy, and change how I do things. Then at some point in time, am I going to get could I potentially get burned out faster and more exhausted mentally and frustrated because I'm not doing things the way that God designed my personality to be, but I'm trying to be somebody I'm not, I guess
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. In a sense, it's why God, I think it's why God says, we're to please him. And so we have to have a clear conscience before God on our actions. And when we set up these boundaries, I think sometimes, I know for myself, still learning how to set up boundaries, because being an NF, so being like James or myself, it's honestly, don't take offense to this, James, but it's a little bit more of a feminine, culturally, it's accepted to be more imaginative in values to be female. But if you're going to be how do you be a masculine, imaginative, and value-based male? It's not like what the world wants to see. Well, if you're masculine, that means you're logic first, or if you're masculine, you're sensory. You don't have a strong imagination. You're a real world kind of guy.
Yeah.
So learning how to set up boundaries, like, okay, here's how I'm designed, and here's how I can help, and this is what I have to offer. If you can learn that about yourself, then there's a lot more, I think, strength to offer.
It's true. I mean, I remember growing up. I mean, I remember playing with Legos and doing different things like that, where imagination was important, and it's critical. But I think you hit it right on, that the world doesn't look at that as a valuable in itself. Doesn't necessarily look at it as a valuable characteristic.
Yeah, I think especially culturally, like different cultures. If you go to Germany or Italy, or like different cultures will accept different personalities more mainstream. So like our culture is more SJ, is more of an SJ culture, and SP, and the N is more from the N comes more from essentially the immigrants, and so we have like Einstein coming over. He's perhaps an INTP, and we have all this Yeah, my mind is going way too fast, so I got to slow down. I'm thinking about a lot of different things. Let's get back to so within the team. I like Jared's question. I feel like did I do justice to that, Jared, or should we talk about it some more? Like, how long do you stay in your personality?
No, I love it, and I think
Okay,
what you talked about with the opportunity or the ability, some would say the curse of being able to just float around. It's this consumer-driven mindset of, oh, I don't like this, so I'm going to go here. I don't like this, so I'm going to go there. Is really difficult to live with in America while maintaining a Christ-centered mindset, because sometimes the best growth comes by staying in a place that you're not comfortable. But really, what's driving it? What's motivating it? What's, who are you trying to please? Those are the filters by which you can draw those boundaries you're talking about. So it's super helpful.
All right, cool.
Good. It's all good. So let's wrap it up. Just with a little bit of application, we're kind of already talking about it, but what are some of the things, I'll throw this question out to both of you. What are some of the things that our folks listening in church safety and security, what are some things that they can do to strengthen their team using this?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
We'll go to the expert first. Then I'll just try and repeat I'll repeat the smart stuff you said with different words and really try and. Yeah.
Thanks, man. No problem. Oh, let's see. Well, I would really want to encourage Christians in the Lord that when they look at MBTI or different ways to try to take these tests. Now, let me be really specific here. I don't know anything about the Big Five. There's other ones out there. There's what's the one where it begins with an E? There's other types of Enneagram, right? I haven't studied any of that, and I can't speak to that. It's really just the MBTI letters are showing how we handle wisdom and knowledge. And we're gonna, like, Lord willing, get this book out eventually. I'll recommend it, but right now I can't because it's halfway through it. But what it's really just trying to demonstrate how the person is handling wisdom and how they're handling knowledge. And then the question becomes, so let's just give a quick example. If a person is value dominant, the MBTI would say F for feeling. They're saying they're feelings dominant. Strike that out. Don't even think about that. What they're saying is they're values dominant. And so if that person has a bunch of feelings about something, say, okay, well, what values are you holding? And let's go to God's word and see if those values line up with God. Maybe they're good feeling. Maybe you're upset for a good reason, or maybe it's not a good reason. So don't discard MBTI. Also handle it a little bit carefully, because understanding that it's difficult to get an accurate assessment right off the bat, because you really have to be super objective. And it's good to ask questions from your friends. Am I like this? Do you see me as direct? Do you see me as informative? And don't just say, oh, that's what I am. So that'll help taking the test. Personality Max is a good website if you don't use MBTI. Personality Max. Yeah, that's on my website too. You'll be able to click. There's a link there. So.
Yeah, that's perfect. And one of the things we're working on, Mike and I are working on the next book in the Ministry Life Cycle series, which is Equip. And one of the things that we're talking about now is that it's almost essential. And this is just our both of our beliefs, which is probably why he likes talking about it so much. But we both believe that it's worth taking the time to have your team go through and use that instrument, whatever instrument that you find, to measure that, to have like a list for your folks that are serving with you, and you can take it too, to show them what kind of personality traits you have from the wisdom and knowledge perspective. But if you have a list of people and where they fit into that, then that's a great place to start with equipping people and making sure that their spiritual needs are met to serve, and that mentally they're being motivated, and equipped to serve. So,
Yeah.
Jared, I'll go
I
ahead.
think it sets it up where being, being self-aware it sounds kind of hippie, but ultimately understanding who God made you to be and how God made you to operate and function. And then being able to turn that outwards, our first ministry should be in our homes. So understanding, how to get along and disciple and lead your family well, that is certainly going to roll over into your ministry in the church, whether it's with your safety and security team members or with that person that came to church in crisis that day, and having the ability to clearly communicate and show God's love to them in the way that's most likely to be received, is just a gift that will pay huge dividends, both at home and in ministry, when applied right. One of the definitions of wisdom that I've always heard is that wisdom is really applied knowledge. And so taking that head knowledge and then being able to apply it in your relationships and your interactions, you look at Solomon, who was not without fault, but was known for his wisdom. And so to be known as somebody who can display the wisdom and apply the knowledge that God's given him, what a gift and opportunity to be ministry minded, regardless of your role.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, well, we are just about out of time. Is there anything else that either of you want to add?
Nope, I'm good.
No, thanks for letting me fill in for Mike. Happy anniversary, Mike. Whenever you sit and watch this and catch up on all the good stuff we talked about.
Cool. Well, again, Jason, thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate it. It's a great conversation. Love having you on and just kind of brainstorming some of that, because I think that a lot of times I think we gloss over some of the I don't know, the personality piece of it. To me, that seems foundational. Like the older I get and the more I research, I've researched quite a bit on generational motivation, like with serving in the church. And I just feel like the older I get, the more I feel like connecting, like as we look to disciple and mentor younger generation and younger generations, we need to be aware of personality. We need to be aware of the context of this, because it just makes it so much easier. I mean, yes, there's a learning curve, and I'm still learning stuff, with it as it were. But at the same time, when you understand the wisdom and knowledge piece of it, and the biblical application and everything else, I feel like it's really needed. I feel like it fills a void, and it allows us to be able to serve better and more efficiently. And, that's kind of what we all want. I think we all want a successful ministry, and we want to be successful for what God's called us to do. So it's kind of an interesting piece, but I think it's a necessity. So I always like talking about it. And
Thank you. I do too.
And pulling you in to do that. But if somebody wants to get a hold of you or talk to you further, what's your website and a good way to do that?
So it's all one word, just wisdomandknowledge.com. So wisdomandknowledge.com. You can go there, and there's lots of
Awesome.
Building and resources, and you can email me through there. There's also the link under coaching sessions. You can take the Personality Max test. Just remember, it's
cool. It's an instrument and not.
It's just an instrument, right? Don't stake your life on it.
No, that's cool, and I love Jared's thoughts on that too. That just having that knowledge allows you to be more focused on who who God's created you to be, and be able to embrace that. And, in a world where we're dealing with mental health and everything else, it's nice to be able to have a focus where it's like, you know what, this can be used to aid in that, I think. Yeah. So it's good.
Well, I don't know if you can cut this out if it's the broadcast, but Jared, you nailed it when you said practicing at home. That's where I practice most of my application and trying to use this is you learn at home. Even the Bible says that, right? That the elders, they need to be able to rule their own house well before they move into the leadership. So absolutely leading your house well.
Sure. So how many times I'm just going to ask this because I know somebody's going to wonder it. How many times have you gotten into a conversation with your wife or your kids, Jason, and they're like, Dad, stop, or or Jason, stop with the analyzing?
It's usually, it happens a lot, maybe not quite that way, but it happens probably once a week. There's somebody seeing something in somebody. They're like, hey, you're doing this function a little too much there, or we're looking for somebody with this function.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's fun.
That's awesome. Good stuff. All right. Well, we will wrap up this broadcast. Thanks for joining us. And as always, you can always visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com for some great resources. And if we we'll work on putting a link on our page for Jason's page. So that way, if you have any questions or you want to reach out to him, you can visit our page or go to wisdomandknowledge.com for more information on that. So great resources, and that's what we focus on, trying to provide resources and great material for you to just serve him better. So with that, I will say have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time. So take care. God bless.
This hour of broadcasting brought to you by TwoWayRadioCenter.com, a Motorola value-added reseller. Thank you for joining the Church Safety Guys broadcast, brought to you by Vigilant Impact. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback and interaction. Be sure to share our broadcast with your teams, join the discussion online, and connect with us on social media. For other great ministry resources, download the Church Security app or at our website at churchsafetyguys.com. Remember, keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and semper disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.